Welcome to Black Being. Today we have a very special thing. I'm outside and it's cold outside, but I thought I'd give us a different viewpoint today. Today I want to talk about some of the current issues that's going on. More particularly about the issue that's in Virginia right now. Excuse me, with the debacle that's going down there with the governor of Virginia. Real short scenario on the story. Governor of Virginia basically is being asked to resign because of a picture that they supposedly found of him and another person. He was supposedly in blackface, dressed as Michael Jackson. The other person was a Klansman, or dressed as a Klansman, and the outcry is just, off the handle. They want him to resign, and they want him to do more than apologize. He's refusing to step down. So, topic for today's expose is, are we too sensitive? Before you get offended, again, that's why I'm doing this. Are we too sensitive? There are several factors in this case alone. I don't know anything about the history of this man other than what I've heard on television. But I do know that as a nation, as a people, I believe we have become too sensitive, and in some cases, just downright hypersensitive. I say that because the obvious things are being overlooked. A lot of things that are being talked about, to me, are more so because of political agendas. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. And that's what I'm asking you, to open the eyes of your heart, your mind. One, he's a Democrat in Virginia. No matter what the outcome of this situation is, you cannot change a person's heart. They apologize all they want. I was reminded of an incident that just happened a few months ago. Kevin Hart, comedian, asked to host the Academy Awards. Somebody did the diligence to research this man's history years ago, found out that he did a bit and did a little Twitter about a homosexual comment. The Academy said, we can't have that, you got to apologize. Kevin Hart said, I've already apologized about that. It went back and forth. And the end of the story is, he's at this moment that we know of, he's still not hosting the Academy Awards. Comedians came to his aid and said, this is ridiculous. Jerry Seinfeld, one respected comedian, said this is ridiculous. I heard one other comedian, I believe it was Ricky Smiley, said, even when a comedian apologized, he don't really mean it because he meant what he said. Are we becoming too overly sensitive? I really believe it's not so much being overly sensitive, as I'll state in a moment. I believe that for the most part, people have a political agenda. The recent hearings of Brett Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court, man whose history, I felt sorry for the man in the histories. He was holding back tears because to him, his character was being assassinated for things he hadn't done. And still, to this day, I think they finally found somewhere in the archives maybe 3 women that said he had sexually assaulted them. I heard the terms, the definitions for sexual assault, and I was mystified. I said, is this what we have come down to? If I look at you in a certain way, that can be considered an assault. I heard a commentary a while ago. There was a debate between a conservative talk show host and he was talking with a member of the homosexual community, and they got on the point of transgender, and said if he was to call a man who had now taken on the character of a woman, he would be offending her. Well, her words was that he would be, it would be a violent act. A violent act. A violent act. If I said to you, if I called you he, when in terms you're now she, it's now a violent act. It was called a violent, I think the word was an assault. Have we become overly sensitive? Let me give you another point. The N-word. Sometimes we are in the realm of things shooting mosquitoes and swatting at flies. We're shooting mosquitoes and swatting at flies. I heard someone very important says there are times where you ought to pick your battles, and I think as a black race, some of the battles we pick could be much more thought of. We have knee-jerk reactions. Social media comes on, and all of a sudden, everyone's irate. A Twitter post, and all of a sudden, everyone's got an agenda. And I think social media has added to the fuel of us being overly sensitive. The N-word, the N-word. You can't even say that word. But we, as blacks, say it all the time. Well, I know you just said, I don't say it, I don't use it, but a lot of us have, and I'm guilty of using that word. I think we as blacks have got to come to a recognition that either we're going to have this word in the back. Listen, the only way that I can be offended is if I let you offend me. The only way I can be offended is if I let you offend me. I'm not saying that we shouldn't hold people accountable, especially those who are in authority, especially if they're using it for terms of discrimination. But if you call me out of my name, and I know I'm not that name, what right do I have to get offended unless it's something that worth fighting for? And half of the time, it's a political driven motive, and half of the time it's something that does not even worth merit. Have we become overly sensitive, or have we just started thinking with our heart and not our mind? See, if we think with our heart only, then our feelings will get in the way, our emotions will get in the way, instead of using your mind. God has given you two eyes. Open the eyes of my heart. Open the eyes. One of the ABCs to actually being successful is that and that's open your eyes and see things as they really are. See them as they really are. See them as they really are, and not just what CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS, and the rest of them say. See it for what it really is. My goodness, don't just take one thought and one opinion and run with it. Donald Trump is not the first person the news didn't just begin being fake with Donald Trump. For those of you that don't think it's fake, let me define that for you. News has an agenda. News has an agenda. The news has an agenda. Have you ever asked yourself, why does one thing make the news and others don't? There are millions, there's thousands being slaughtered over the world. There's sexual trafficking being done right at this moment. There's many atrocities being performed. But then we have a news about a Kardashian just lost her slipper. That's headline news. Open the eyes of my heart. That's what I would like to encourage you. And it's not about a side. Matter of fact, if you're going to believe in something, know what you believe in. If you're going to believe in it, then stand. I heard a famous man There's a Bishop, Nathaniel Jones, said to me, if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. Stand. And Jesus said, the word of God says, and having done all to stand, therefore. And if you're going to stand, make certain you're standing on solid ground. Listen, when this is all said and done, when everything is all done, when you're at the end of your life, and when they've written history, whose side will you be known to stand for? Side of right, side of wrong? I don't mind saying I stand for life. I don't mind saying I stand for decency and morality. I don't mind saying I stand for the Lord and His goodness. Listen, we all have a cross to bear. We all have a road to walk. But this sensitivity thing, this has got to stop somewhere. Someone's got to say, you know what, enough is enough. Most of it, 80% of it, is a political driven agenda. And if you can see past the smoke and mirrors, if you can see past the pony show, if you can look deeply and ask the real questions of why this is news, then you make it to the point. For one, let me say this. A person's past is not predicated on what they're going to do in the future. You know, people, as I heard Kevin Hart say, people change. One thing about life is that it does change. And that's what I find very, very hard to accept, is that these people, if they even had committed that, and I'm going to talk about Bill Cosby in another episode, but even if people change, if we don't have faith that people change, what's the use of having a prison system? Matter of fact, the prison systems is one of the greatest fallacies that we have for folks not regarding change. The felony laws, let me just point that out, are in place. Michelle Alexander, if you haven't checked out her work, check it out on the new Jim Crow. The felony laws are put into place to keep people from going forward. You mean if I've given my precious time, which is one of the most precious things I can give, you're still going to hold me bondage, hold me captive to something that I did years ago? That's not right. It's not fair. And it's not right, nor is it fair to hold someone else bondage and captive for something they did years ago. The man apologized. I don't know anything about him. And I would almost be, and I say almost, be the last person to want to stand up for a Democrat. And I'm not saying all Democrats are evil. And for those of you that are Democrats, don't be offended. If you are a Democrat, I want you to ask yourself, especially if you're Democrat and Christian, how can you be part of a party that supports the termination of life? How can you be part of a party that doesn't believe in the morality principles of the Bible? And I'm not saying the Republicans are any better. Matter of fact, for those of you that don't know, I'm neither one. I'm an independent. I'm not bound by one. I'm not bound by the other. I make my decisions based on my knowledge of who I know, who God is, and my knowledge of how things are operating in the world. And I think you should do the same too. You shouldn't be overly sensitive about this, sensitive about that. The time has come for us as people to make up our minds whether or not we're going to live in a world of forgiveness or live in a world of hate.